Om Hari Om. Om Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Vidya Dravinam Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Thou art our loving mother. Thou art our compassionate Father. Thou art our true friend and constant companion. Thou art our only wealth, and Thou art our only wisdom. Thou art all in all. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace, peace, peace. We continue with the Sermon on the Mount. And when thou prayest, thou shalt not be as the hypocrites are. For they love to pray standing in the synagogues and in the corners of the streets, that they may be seen of men. Verily, I say unto you, they have their reward. But thou, when thou prayest, enter into thy closet, and when thou hast shut thy door, pray to thy Father which is in secret, and thy Father which seeth in secret shall reward thee openly. Now a contrast is brought here about the so-called prayer and true prayer. You find there are people who try to make a show of their religion. That is the so-called prayer. And why do they make a show of their religion? They think that way they can get recognition, fame, wealth, followers, and so on and so forth. In other words, their objective is not God. Their objective is something different. And you find them talking glibly about fellow men. They want followers, fellow men. They want to give their heart for their fellow men. There is a saying of Swami Vivekananda that every beggar wants to give $1 million. But first earn. What can you do for your fellow men unless you have got it? But these people would stand on the street, as it were, and make a show of their religion to help themselves. There's a saying of Sri Ramakrishna: beware of certain people and certain conditions. Beware of people who put holy leaves on their ear and put marks on their forehead to show that they are great spiritual people. Beware of such. Then also, beware of such people who are secretive. Beware of people who talk too much. And also beware of the water of a pond covered with scum. They are harmful. Now, what is the objective of prayer? To find God. And God cannot be demonstrated outside. Here, Christ teaches to pray in secret. Shut your door. Go into the closet. Because it is something between you and your God. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, meditate in the woods or in the corner of your room and in your own mind and in your own consciousness. It is a heart-to-heart talk with God. Now then, what is the reward of such? Christ says that he will be, I shall reward him openly. What is the reward of praying to God? God vision. That is the objective of life, as I have explained to you many times. That how there is no fulfillment until we have reached our union with God. That is the purpose and object of life and living. Otherwise, there is no meaning to this life. You know, I just heard a very interesting comment or remark, or rather, a psychiatrist asked about 300 people the question, do you find any reason for your life and living? Why should you be living? And 9 out of 10 people answered, I don't see any reason for this life and living. And that is the truth. Unless you know that your objective of human birth is to find your union with God, as Christ has definitely pointed out, what we already studied in the Sermon on the Mount. Be perfect even as the Father which is in heaven is perfect. That is the one objective in life for this human birth. You see, enjoyments, pleasures. Do you think anybody, any human being can enjoy senses as the brute in the field? No. Enjoyments we have had enough in other lives. There is just one purpose, and that is to find bliss in God. And so what is the gain? What do you gain by prayer? God vision, union with God, bliss in God. Then again, the question may be asked, what do you gain by having God vision? Because, you see, we live in a very utilitarian age. And we want to know what profited us. Now, the answer is, what you gain is God vision. The effect of God vision is God vision. There's nothing higher than that. As you find one teaching in the Gita, that when the country is flooded, you do not sink a well to satisfy your thirst. There is fulfillment everywhere. So there is nothing more to gain. But of course, a tree is known by its fruits. Now, what are the fruits of God vision? Of course, you hear about the divine qualities such as compassion, sympathy, feeling of unity. Now, all these come to you naturally. Holiness, purity, tranquility, compassion, all these come to you naturally, normally. But of course, they are not to be demonstrated. But again, you see, the saying goes that when the lotus flower blossoms, the bees come to suck honey of themselves. The lotus flower has not to invite bees to come to the flower. Similarly, when that lotus in your heart blossoms, in other words, when you have the vision of God, then you have the honey. And bees come without your advertising about it. Bees are those who are really spiritual aspirants. And these spiritual aspirants will come to seek honey from you because you can give that honey. And then is it that you really can help mankind or your fellow man. And so that is the effect. And that is what the Lord here says that thy Father which seeth in secret shall reward thee openly. Now we come to the Lord's Prayer. After this manner, therefore, pray ye, Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen. Now this prayer seems so simple. But this prayer has a deep meaning, and which meaning was known to the disciples. You see, it is like aphorism or aphoristic. Christ already taught the disciples how to pray and meditate. When they sit for meditation, how to proceed. He already taught them. Then this prayer is given to them in aphoristic form so that they could remember step by step, each step. And then again remember that this prayer was given to those few intimate disciples. And they knew the deeper meaning of it. And today we just say the prayer, and to us there are so many words. But let us try to understand what the prayer means. Not our Father. Why do we address God as our Father? The first question that arises in the mind of a spiritual aspirant is how to pray and what is God? Then we find that every great illumined teacher who has known God, who has seen God, he will say God is indefinable, inexpressible. Is beyond all conception, beyond all thought, but is realizable. Sri Ramakrishna used to give the illustration. The bees make big noise in the beginning. Then they sit on the flower, and as they sit on the flower and begin to suck honey, they become silent. Then again, having had their fill, they make sweet humming noise. Similarly, until we have known God, we make a big noise about God. We say he can be this and not that. And the idea of God that I have is the only idea, is the only truth. There is this story in the Upanishads. The father sent the son to study God, about God. After 12 years, the son comes back. The father asks him, what is God? Tell me. And he gave a wonderful lecture on God, quoting scriptures one after another. Then the father said, go back, my son, you have not yet learned what is to be learned. So he studied for another 12 years, then he came back. And this time the father asked him, tell me what you have learned about God. But the boy remained silent. Then the father said, why, my child, your face shines like an hour of Brahman. You have known him. His name is silence. There is another saying that it is just like a dumb person trying to express how he feels the taste of a delicacy. But then again, as I said, the bee getting drunk, intoxicated, makes a sweet humming noise. So again we find these great illumined souls, having attained that, they try to express. And in their expression we find they define God as personal, as impersonal, as with attributes, without attributes. You find as it were all contradictions meet in God. But then we, in our ignorance, until we have seen God, we have to accept some idea of God. And so there is the personal idea and the impersonal idea. Now again, in Vedanta we find that there are two paths of approach. What is called jnana and what is known as bhakti. Jnana, the path of knowledge. The followers of the path of knowledge worship God as an impersonal being, all-pervading spirit, formless, attributeless. And they try to realize their oneness with God. I and my Father are one. That is their method of approach. Now there is the bhakti yoga, the path of devotion. And this path of devotion, those who follow the path of devotion, they accept God in his personal aspect. And so we find Christ in all his teachings, he emphasizes the path of devotion. There is the idea of loving God as a personal being. You cannot begin by loving an impersonal being. Because impersonal again is something that is not to be conceived as having attributes, beyond attributes. Now in the Gita we find very interesting discussion about this. It points out how it is possible to realize our union with God through following either the path of knowledge or the path of devotion. But Sri Krishna points out that the path of knowledge is difficult for the embodied to follow. Now in this connection I shall read out to you. Arjuna the disciple. Some worship you with steadfast love, others worship God the unmanifest and changeless. Which kind of devotee has the greater understanding of yoga? Sri Krishna answers, those whose minds are fixed on me in steadfast love, worshipping me with absolute faith, I consider them to have the greater understanding of yoga. As for those others, the devotees of God, the unmanifest, indefinable, and changeless, they worship that which is omnipresent, constant, eternal, beyond thought's compass, never to be moved. They hold all the senses in check. They are tranquil-minded and devoted to the welfare of humanity. They see the Atman, or God, in every creature. They also will certainly come to me. But the devotees of the unmanifest have a harder task, because the unmanifest is very difficult for embodied souls to realize. Quickly I come to those who offer me every action, worship me only, their dearest delight, with devotion undaunted. Because they love me, they are my bondsmen, and I shall save them from mortal sorrow and all the waves of life's deathly ocean. Be absorbed in me, lodge your mind in me, thus you shall dwell in me, do not doubt it, here and hereafter. Why is this path of devotion said to be easier? Because love is something natural in every human heart. And what is loving God? It is to direct this love that we have normally, naturally in our heart towards God. There's a beautiful truth taught in the Upanishads. There was a great sage, Yagnavulka. And after some time, he wanted to retire from the world and take to monastic life. And so he made a deed of gift of all his wealth and property to his wife Maitreyi and was taking leave of her. Then Maitreyi asked him, "You offer me this wealth. Will it give me immortality?" Then, of course, the husband said, "No. This wealth will make you happy in the worldly sense." Then she asked, "Tell me that, give me that, which would give me immortality. Teach me that." Then Yagnavulka said, "You have been very dear to me, but now you are dearer to me for asking that question." Then he began to teach her. And the substance of the teaching is this: the husband loves the wife not for the sake of the wife, but for God who dwells in the wife. The wife loves the husband not for the sake of the husband, but for the sake of God dwelling within the husband. The father loves the son not for the sake of the son, but for the sake of God dwelling within the son. Thus, everywhere, in every form of love, it is that God dwelling within that attracts us. And if we recognize that, that is loving God. And because we do not recognize that, that's why we find that the love does not find its fulfillment in our human relationship. There's always a lack. You see, for instance, husband and wife living together have such great understanding of each other, have companionship, and still again each one feels lonely. What is the reason? Because that real companionship cannot be had unless you learn to commune with God. This reminds me of an incident in the life of Ramakrishna and his wife, whom we call Holy Mother. Those of you who have read the life of Ramakrishna will remember how Ramakrishna worshipped Holy Mother, his own wife, as Divine Mother. And as he was worshipping, Holy Mother went into Samadhi, Ramakrishna went into Samadhi. And they had that divine communion. The worshipper and the worshipped both in Samadhi, united in the spiritual realm. You see, that is what love ultimately culminates in, that union with God. Now again, there are different relationships, different forms of love. You see, son's love for the father or father's love for the son, not the same kind. Then love between friends, love between sweethearts. You see, they have different forms, but it is the same love. Now again, we can love God in any of these forms. You see, all these different relationships that we find in our human life, the love that we offer is divine. Now, when we can direct that love towards the eternal being, towards God, then it finds its fulfillment. And so again, we can love God as father, or friend, or mother, or sweetheart. You see, You'll find all those aspects again of love in the teachings of Christ and in the lives of the great mystics in every religion. But here, of course, our Father. That relationship is established here. But again, you see, relationship changes also. Father also is a friend. And as that nearness is felt, and that is to be felt in prayer and meditation. You see, not God who is above, who is away, but God who is nearmost. And not his grandeur and glory. You know, if we go to think of the grandeur and glory of God, we feel ourselves so far away from him. Think of this universe, millions of universes coming out of his outgoing breath. You see, as he breathes out, millions of worlds are created. And again, he absorbs millions of worlds. When we think of his power, of his grandeur, of his glory, from that standpoint, we feel ourselves unworthy to think and pray. But yet again, that God is our friend, is our own Father, more than our own Father. You know, suppose your father is a great man, but to you, you are not thinking of his greatness and grandeur, how the others look upon him with awe. No, you go to your father man to man. And so that relationship is to be established with God. And you know, there's a saying, as you move towards God one step, he moves forward to you 7 steps, 10 steps. He comes nearer to you. You feel him nearer. And so that relationship is to be established with him, our Father. Which art? Now, you see, when a Christ teaches of God, then there comes no question about the existence of God. It's self-evident. I have seen this in the presence of the disciples of Ramakrishna. No question would arise whether God is or God is not. Not only that, you feel that living presence. You feel he is. Not that merely. They would make you feel that he's so near to you, is just like a fruit in your hand. You have got it. In other words, they make you feel that he's realizable and you can realize it. You see, this is the one truth that we must try to convince ourselves. As I said, the purpose of life is to have union with God. But do not consider that ideal to be something like an utopia. Because the fact is that you are in union with God. You know, I often give the illustration. You take a miner, for instance, who wants to get gold or uranium nowadays. And he thinks there is uranium there. And he goes to dig. Well, he may get it or he may not get it. But the mine of bliss is already there. There's no doubt that it may be or may not be. But dive, dig, and you are bound to find that. But you see, the tradition of today has been lost, has been confused. You have lost that tradition. And so it seems an utopia. But it is very practical. Now, which are? That's God is self-evident. Logic, reasoning, or scientific proofs for the existence of God may be convincing for the moment. But you see, in the realm of reason, there are as many reasonable proofs for the existence of God as there are proofs for the non-existence of God. There are two sides to it in the realm of reasoning. And then again, as it is pointed out very definitely, what is the real proof for the existence of God? Somebody comes and says, I have seen him. I have known him. That is the greatest proof. And it is not one man who says that. If only one man had said that, perhaps I'd say he's just crazy. But in the history of the religious movement of the world, you'll find that many have seen, many see today. And then again, the last proof for the existence of God is not even there. But you have to have your own personal experience. Now, of course, as you approach an illumined teacher, he makes you feel, makes you see, as it were, which art. Now, again, where is God? Which art in heaven. Now, what is this heaven? There is this theological idea in Christendom of heaven somewhere up in the sky. There is an incident that Sir John Woodruff, he points out. He went to visit, he was Chief Justice in India, an Englishman. And of course, he was very much interested in Hindu philosophy and religion. And he studied Sanskrit and he translated many Sanskrit scriptures, especially the Tantras. One time he went to visit a school, some young boys' school. And most of the boys were Hindus and there were two Christian boys. And this Woodruff asked, where is heaven? And the two Christian boys pointed their hands this way. And all the Hindu boys pointed to their heart. Now, this is not that only Hindus say that and Christians point out to the heaven, but these Christians have misunderstood the teachings of Christ. What does Christ say? Neither shall they say, lo here, lo there, for behold, the kingdom of God is within you. But of course, again, you see these theologians, beware of them. They explain this within as amidst. Christ was amidst them, so he said Christ was there amidst them, and he was the heaven. But then after Christ is gone, where is he? All right, let us feel that Christ is within our own hearts. He's not gone anywhere. He's always within. Now the question is again, what is this heaven within? Let us try to point out first where the earth is. Earth or heaven, both are in your own consciousness. In other words, God the Absolute, the one reality, seen through the veil of time, space, and causation, appears as this universe of name and form. You see this earth. Now again, when you transcend time, space, and relativity, then you are in heaven. So earth and heaven really are in your consciousness. As long as our mind remains limited, limited means again impure, attached to the senses. So long the mind has this physical consciousness, this earth consciousness. But that same mind, when purified, is seeing heaven, living in heaven. Now, again, let me try to explain it from another psychological angle. You see, modern science also proves this time, space, and relativity, they have no reality. But they are there only in appearance. And through that appearance, we are seeing God and seeing this appearance of universe. Now again, whatever we see and experience in the universe is something that is always changing, ever in a flux. Anything that you know, sense, and perceive or experience is ever in a flux. And yet, through our ignorance, we are trying to hold that flux as something abiding and eternal. As Buddha said, it's like bidding the clouds to stay. Clouds are always moving. Same way with everything in the universe. But again, this experience of change is not possible unless there is something unchangeable within you. You see, your body, mind, senses, your ideas, thoughts, your experience, your knowledge, everything is changing. But you have the consciousness, I am I. I am that I. And you see, that is God. That is heaven. To reach that unchangeable reality, your true Atman, that is God. That is Brahman. And that is heaven. Now in this connection again, I shall read out to you a beautiful passage from the Upanishads, where to find this heaven and how to meditate. Within the city of Brahman, you see, city of Brahman is this human body. Which is the body? There is the heart. And within the heart, there is a little house. This house has the shape of a lotus. And within it dwells that which is to be sought after, inquired about, and realized. What then is that which, dwelling within this little house, this lotus of the heart, is to be sought after, inquired about, and realized? As large as the universe outside, even so large is the universe within the lotus of the heart. Within it are heaven and earth, the sun, the moon, the lightning, and all the stars. What is in the macrocosm is in the microcosm. All things that exist, all beings and all desires are in the city of Brahman. What then becomes of them when old age approaches and the body dissolves in death, though old age comes to the body, the lotus of the heart does not grow old. At death of the body, it does not die. The lotus of the heart, where Brahman exists in all his glory, that and not the body is the true city of Brahman. Brahman, dwelling therein, is untouched by any deed, ageless, deathless, free from grief, free from hunger and from thirst. His desires are right desires, and his desires are fulfilled. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. You know, in every religion and philosophy, there has been placed a great emphasis upon the word or the holy name. We read in the Gospel according to St. John, in the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. In the Vedas we read, Prajapatir Bhai idam agre asit. In the beginning was the Lord of creatures. With him, second was the Word, and this Word is Brahman. You know, the Word, the name of God, that is the Word, and God are identical. You know, just as you say, you think of a person, John, you have to say the name. Immediately the name comes to you. Now again, you see in India, and I would say in the lives of all the great mystics of the world, Christians or Buddhists or Sufis or Jews, all in the mystics of all life, in the lives of all mystics, you find this, that they chanted the name of God. That is one of the spiritual practices taught universally. In India, there is this idea of what is known as initiation, diksha, initiation. You see, a holy name is given to the disciple, and that holy name is said to have the power in a seed form. And then as you repeat that, that power begins to unfold. And it is an apostolic succession of power. The Guru transmits that power to the disciple with the help of the name. And the name becomes hallowed, as it were, living and hallowed. As you make japam, as you repeat, as you chant that name again and again and again, then it becomes living. Living in this sense, you begin to feel that that name itself is God. You are in the presence of God. That name becomes the body of God, as it were. And the vision of God comes. Sri Ramakrishna used to say that it is just like you are holding a rope, and the rope is being drawn nearer and nearer to the destination. You hold on fast to that rope. So as you hold on fast to the name of God, the vision opens up. Now, of course, you see, I cannot give you any philosophy or any explanation to how it happens or why it happens. Only I can tell you that if you experiment, it does happen. That's all I can say. That there is a sweetness in the name. And that sweetness you begin to taste as you repeat. And then it becomes living, alive, full of power. And then you have the vision of God. Your mind also, with the help of that, becomes concentrated. You know, there's a prayer of another great saint, Sri Chaitanya. Various are thy names, O Lord. You see, there's not one name of God. Various are the names of God. Various are thy names, O Lord. In each and every name thy power resides. No times are set, no rites are needful for chanting of thy name. So vast is thy mercy. How huge then is my wretchedness, who find in this empty life and heart no devotion to thy name. This is a prayer of Sri Chaitanya. Thy kingdom come. I will not have time to take this up. Om Hari Om. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya. Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya. Mrityorma Amritangamaya. Abir Maidhi. Rudrajatte Dakshinang Mukhang. Tatte Namang Pahi Nityam. Om. Lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from death to immortality. Lead us from darkness to light. Light us through and through, and guide us evermore with thy loving presence. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace, peace, peace.